Hello, everyone, and welcome to the part 9 of this MCP series. In our lab today, we will learn how to work with MCP Inspector to test our MCP servers. So let's get started. Prerequisite for this lab is having an existing MCP server to test. So if you do not have an existing MCP server, please refer to this part 8 in which I have created a streamable HTTP stateless server. The URL is mentioned right here at the bottom. It will also be mentioned in the description of this video. Scenario for our lab today. In our lab today, we will test a streamable HTTP stateless server or any other server that you have. In our case, our server exposes a single server tool called as start notification stream. This particular server tool accepts three parameters: interval, count, and caller, and we will test this server using MCP Inspector. So if you have your own server, feel free to use that server. If not, please go to part 8, create this server, and then come back. Why? Because we are not going to create the server in this part. Our intention in this lab is to test an existing server. So hopefully the scenario is clear. Reference URLs. So this is a GitHub repo URL from Model Context Protocol, and this is for Inspector. Please keep this URL handy because we will need to fork this particular repo into our GitHub account and then clone this repo on our machine. This URL will also be mentioned in the description of this video. Environment setup. So there are two options. My recommendation would be that you provision a single Windows Server 2025 base C5 extra large EC2 instance with 60 gigabytes of space on AWS. This is my recommendation. But hey, if you want to use your laptop or your desktop, feel free to do that. The only reason I use an EC2 instance is because I don't want to clutter my laptop or my desktop. The next thing that you need to do is you need to go ahead and fork this GitHub repo. So go ahead and fork this GitHub repo into your GitHub account. And finally, depending on your setup, if you have provisioned an EC2 instance, then go ahead, download and install VS Code, Git for Windows, and Node.js. Now, in my case, I have already completed these steps. So let us quickly review that. So this is right here. So this is the repo provided by Model Context Protocol, and this is for Inspector. This is my GitHub account, as you can see, and I have already forked this repo over here. This is the first one, Inspector, right there. So this is that particular repo. So I'm good to go as far as my repo is concerned. I already have my server up and running over here. This is the same server that I had created in part 8. So it's up and running. As you can see, Ubicon is running the server on port 3000. Also, my Visual Studio Code, along with Git and everything else, Node.js, all of that is installed on this machine. So I have basically completed all of these steps. So let's continue further ahead. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to basically clone the MCP Inspector repo on our machine. So let us do that. So let me go to my EC2 instance. This is my EC2 instance right here. I'm going to open another instance of code and go to clone repository, clone from GitHub, Inspector, and I'm going to clone this in this particular folder number rather. Okay, so select this as the repository destination. So, and then open this cloned repository. So this is the entire repo for MCP Inspector that we have cloned on our local machine. So we have basically cloned this repo and also opened this repo using VS Code on our machine. So we have completed these two steps. Now the intention is to run the MCP Inspector utility. And we will run this utility using this particular command, right? So let's go over here. So this is the entire repo over here. And this is the readme MD. If you scroll down, that same command is mentioned right here. So our intention is to use this as is. We are not going to make any changes. We are going to use this utility as is. Okay. So let us copy this particular command right there. Control C, there you go. New terminal. I'm going to get rid of this chat and bring this here and pull this up and paste this right there and hit enter. Now it is telling me that MCP-inspector is not recognized as an internal or external command. Now there are multiple ways to resolve this, but the easiest way to resolve this is go a level below and now execute this command from here. So if you get this error message, this is the way to easily resolve this. So now hit enter. And it is starting MCP Inspector. So you saw that our MCP Inspector got started. What you need to pay attention to over here is this session token. This session token is what is exactly mentioned over here as proxy auth token. If you see, this is the same thing over here. It's the same thing that's mentioned over here. And in this browser window, you will see that this token is mentioned right here. And the same token is mentioned over here in the proxy session token. So if you get an error that proxy session token is not available or is missing, or please go to the configuration section and key in the proxy session token. Don't be alarmed or don't start wondering as to where you are going to get this token from. This token is actually right here. This is the same session token. Okay, so now we have our MCP Inspector up and running. Our server is also up and running at port 3000. And now we should be able to test our server. So let us go over here. Transport type in our case is streamableHttp. And we are basically going to run this particular server. So localhost 3000, or you can also say 27.0.0.1 3000, and then hit on connect. Now it is giving us an error, that connection error. Check if your MCP server is running and proxy token is correct. And let us check. Our MCP server is actually running. And the proxy token is also correct. Remember, this is the same token that we had from here. So our proxy token is correct. Now, if you get this error, there's an easier way to resolve this. Put MCP at the end because it needs to know that you're following the MCP protocol and it should go and look for that MCP endpoint. Now go ahead and hit on connect again. And now you see that we have successfully connected to our MCP server. Now we have an option over here to list the tools. Remember that we have only one tool to enlist over here. So let's click on list tools. This is our tool right here, start notification stream. And this particular tool takes 3 parameters. So we had count, interval, and caller ID. So if we select this tool, then we will be able to see the details over here and run it. So select this tool. So click on it, and then you will see that all the different parameters are actually visible over here. So let me put some numbers here, 2, maybe 3, and the caller is Namrata. And if I can only bring this up, you see that this history is basically telling us that it is initialized, and then it has basically enlisted all the tools. And there are no server notifications at this time. So we have provided values for all the 3 parameters for our server tool. And now let us run this particular tool. So hit on run tool. Remember, we are expecting notifications from our server. So we are expecting 3 notifications at an interval of 2 seconds each. And this is the caller ID. So the tool result over here is saying success and is telling us send 3 notifications with 2 seconds interval for caller Nabrada. So now if you go over here, you will see that this is where this information is coming from. And the message that we are seeing, notification 1 of 3 from caller Namrata, is basically also coming from here. So if I go back, you will see that this is the message that is coming, notification 1 of 3, and this message is coming from here, right here. So we basically got success, and our notifications were sent by the server and received by us successfully. So we requested for 3 notifications at an interval of 2 seconds, and this is the caller ID. Now let us go and increase the count and run this tool again. And now let's see what happens. Now if you see, you got an error over here, but apparently all your notifications have actually come through. If you see, the tool result is also error, and it is saying MCP error request timed out. So if you get this error while you're doing this lab, is some kind of a bug in the code. So don't worry about it, because see, all the notifications have actually come through. So notification 10 of 10. And typically I have seen this behavior when you increase the count. Now, even if you increase the, let's say, the interval and decrease the count, let's see this time what happens. So interval is 10 seconds, 3 notifications, and the caller ID is NAM. Now let us see what happens. So it's running. Remember, the interval is 10 seconds, so be patient. It will take some time. So what do we have over here? Again, we got the same error. So if either the interval or the count is slightly on the higher side. See, these are not extremely large numbers. I could have made this like 100 seconds or something like that. This is a decent amount of time, but that error keeps on popping. But let us see if we got. So this is the first message. This is the second message. And this is our third message. So don't be alarmed. There's some form of a bug in the source code, and that's why the server keeps on throwing that error. Now let us go back and look at something else. So I'm keeping the numbers below 3, and I'm just changing the caller ID so that we know which message is from which execution or which run. Okay, now again, let's run this tool. So interval is 4 seconds. Okay, and now you saw that there are no error messages. So let's see. This is 3 of 3. This is from last time. We are expecting 3 messages. Okay, so this is also from last time. So let's see what we have. And it probably just took my, okay, this is the one. Okay, this is 3 of 3. Nam is calling. This is 2 of 3. And this is 1 of 3. So typically, if you keep the numbers for this demo and this lab below 5, it works really very well. So this is how you can go about testing your own MCP server using MCP Inspector. Now, of course, we use streamableHttp, but I believe in part 4 or 5, we have built a stdio server, if I'm not wrong. I think it's 4 or 5. You can go back and check. You can also use that server with MCP to test it. So depending upon what server you have, feel free to use this utility to test your MCP servers. So I hope that this lab was helpful. Do post your comments. Let me know your experience. And this is it from me today. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.